Okay, John.
Okay, I want to welcome everyone to the 2021 Kings Washington Area Alumni Club's Career Day program. My name is John Wetterau, and I'm a member of the Kings class of 1970. I'm also a proud member of the Kings Washington Area Alumni Club's Executive Committee, commonly known as KWAC. I'm happy to be your host today and to welcome each of you, students, presenters, alumni, friends, and King's staff to the first virtual KWAC Career Day program. KWAC Career Day is traditionally hosted here in Washington, D.C. by the KWAC Executive Committee. For most years, the exciting program has provided a wide range of professional opportunities to King's students thanks to the generosity of many King's D.C. area alumni and friends, many of whom are presenting and or observing in these sessions this year. If you haven't already, please be sure to mute yourself while our presenters are speaking. There will be time at the end for Q&A, so save your questions for that time or put your questions into the chat feature. King's is recording this session for future access. We have 5 sessions scheduled this year. 2 have already been done on Tuesday, and we have 3 scheduled for today. This being the first session. This session is titled Resume and Interview Tips. And to begin with, I want to introduce our co-moderators. First one is Jordan Prey. She's a 2018 human resource specialist with 5 years of experience in recruiting and employee relations. She graduated, as I said, in 2018 from King's with a degree in human resource management. During college, she completed 2 years of internships with EDSI, Wilkes-Barre Unemployment Agency, and Benco Dental. She currently works for HeiTech Services, which is a government contractor, as an employee relations specialist. Our other co-presenter today is Katie Jonas. She's a certified professional in human resources with over 10 years experience working in government contracting with HeiTech Services. In January of 2021, she became the Director of Human Resources, and she now oversees all aspects of human resources, including benefits, compensation, employee relations, training, and recruiting. Katie graduated from Minnesota State University, Mankato, with a bachelor's degree in elementary education. She has obtained a certification from HRCI as a professional in human resources, as a PHR, and with the Society for Human Resource Management as a certified professional. With that, turn the program over to Jordan and Katie. All yours.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for that introduction, and welcome to all the students that are here today. Jordan and I are going to take you through some resume and interviewing tips and some things to think about as you prepare to graduate college and get your resume out there and get a job. So one thing I want you to keep in mind is that you can have 2 people look at the same resume for the same job and one person loves it and the other one doesn't, right? So what we're going to share with you today are kind of some general tips to keep in mind as you prepare your resume for those job opportunities that you're seeking. All right, a little bit about the resume. So the average number of resumes that a job will receive is about 250, right? That's a lot. So the average time that a recruiter will look at your resume is about 5 to 7 seconds, which is not a lot, right? So they're going to look at it and kind of determine one way or the other, right? Does it move on, or do we throw it in the trash? So what's the #1 mistake you think that will get your resume thrown in the trash? Spelling errors, right? Obviously, we know that it's spelled wrong at the point, right? So make sure that when you look at your resume, you look for those spelling errors. So we're going to talk about some do's and don'ts of the resume prep. All right, so these are some resume don'ts, and we're going to break it out so you can see it a little bit bigger. I hope that when you're looking at this, you do see some things that are not okay on your resume, right? So the first one we want to point out is don't list your high school. So you all are in college. We know that. We know that you'll soon have a college degree. So you can leave off your high school at this point and just put your college information on there. Don't forget to proofread. As you can see, spell check doesn't always just work. So make sure that you actually go through and look at it to make sure that you have the right words in there that you want. Keep in mind that you should always put your locations of your job. So the city and the state of your previous positions. And then don't use personal pronouns like I, me, or my. And we'll talk a little bit about what you should use instead in just a little bit. Also make sure that you have a professional email. Okay, so partygirl@yahoo.com does not send a very good professional vibe, right? And especially nowadays, most recruiters are emailing you back and forth, right? So that's very important to have a professional email. A couple other things, of course, don't lie or misstate anything on your resume. Especially at this point, people can easily Google things, right? And find stuff on the internet. So make sure that you are honest, of course. Don't mix verb phrases, so past and present tense. If it's a current job, use present tense, and if it's a past job, you can use past tense, but don't mix them up. If you have hobbies, don't list those hobbies on there, especially if they're not relevant to the job that you're looking for. Volunteer activities, of course, could be relevant if that's kind of considered one of your hobbies. So as long as I feel like what I always think is that if it's something you don't want to talk about, don't put it on there, right? If it's something that you like to expand upon and show why it would make you a great candidate, but you know, playing paintball and planting flowers is probably not too relevant to the job that you're seeking. Also, don't list references on your resumes. So make sure you have a separate sheet that has your references listed on there. And always make sure that you call your references and let them know if someone's going to be reaching out to them. All right, so I told you a lot of things not to do. So let's figure out what you should do on your resume. We want to use like a bulleted style. So something like you see on your screen there, it's easy to read. I can quickly go through it and kind of see the highlights of it. If I'm only looking at for 5 to 7 seconds, I don't want to read a whole block paragraph, right? We had a resume come in the other day that looks like this. It's a lot of pages and a lot of words, right? I don't have time for that. So keep it simple to the point with the bullets in there is very helpful. Right now, you'll want to lead with your education, but as you gain more experience and more jobs, you will then lead with your experience at the top and put your education at the bottom. Okay. List your jobs in reverse chronological order. So start with your most recent position first, and then go from there. I actually just looked at a resume today, and their first position listed was in 2015, and the first thought in my head was, this person hasn't had a job since 2015. But he listed them backwards. So keep that in mind. And then lead with action verbs. Okay, we talked about not using pronouns, but you want to use action verbs: created, designed, prepared, established, conducted, managed, things like that, that really grab the hiring manager's attention. Also, so you should have some sort of profile or objective, okay? Could kind of tell the hiring manager a little bit about yourself, right? And especially those transferable skills. So things that you've done in past jobs that could relate to any job, especially if you don't have a lot of experience or you're seeking to change into a different field. If you don't take away anything else from this presentation, this is the one thing I really want you to take away. Think of in terms of accomplishments rather than job duties. Okay, so if you're a cashier and you just say that I rung up customers, well, everyone knows that's what a cashier does, right? Think about things that you accomplished in that position. Okay. So like in this example that you see on your screen, there was somebody who, and these are some things that were taken from real King's College resumes in the past. But this person was landscaping They owned and operated a landscaping business, right? So essentially, it kind of looks like they cut the lawn for their neighbors, right? But they didn't just say that. They put in some other words: manage business operations by budgeting business funds, scheduling weekly property maintenance, and negotiating contracts, right? It sounds a lot more exciting than I cut grass for my neighbors. So think a little bit outside the box. Again, don't lie, but think outside the box and think about those transferable skills. Whenever you can, use numbers or percentages. So quantify how many dollars did you deal with, or how many customers did you interact with, how much did you process, things like that. Those are always good and eye-catching for the resume. Keep your resume to 1 or no more than 2 pages, okay? Listing everything you've done in every job is not super helpful, right? So think about the quality things and the accomplishments you had in those jobs versus just listing everything. Also listing every single activity you've done, every single volunteer thing. And again, if it's not something that you want to talk about in an interview, or that you can really be proud of in an interview and show how it's relevant to your career, then don't put it on your resume. Proofread it carefully. Okay, again, that's super important. And then also pass your resume out. Okay, give it to people to look at. Give it to family.
Here we go.
Give it to family. Give it to friends. I think you guys have a career center at your college. Is that correct, Jordan? Somebody help them there. So seek out their guidance. They're there to help you. Okay. And then I'm going to turn it over to Jordan for a couple other things about interviewing and some of the things. And then, of course, again, at the end, we can talk more about your resume. And if you have questions, we can help answer those.
All right. So before we get into interviewing, just some little quick tips, especially with social media today. We do look at those as recruiters and as HR people. If it's public information, we are able to access that. So just keep in mind when you're using social media that they do give you exposure. You know, websites like LinkedIn are amazing in making contacts and connections, but please also keep in mind that they do give you bad exposure as well. Okay, so make sure that anything that you're putting on there is something that you're okay with everyone seeing. All right, so diving into the interview, some things to keep in mind before you go to your interview or before you have a virtual interview. Make sure that you're researching the organization. You want to make sure that you are prepared, that you know what their values are, that you know why you're interested in working for this company and why you would be an asset to them. Keep in mind that when you're going to an interview, there's other people that have the same exact accomplishments as you. There's people who have the same exact work experience. So you need to find ways to make yourself stand out as an asset to those companies. And that brings you into accessing your key skills. So focus on themes of what makes you different than other applicants. What makes you stand out rather than someone who has 5 years of experience that you only have 2, but are those 2 years of experience more in depth than theirs? And then when you're answering questions, make sure that you are using the STAR method. I know that Kings has told you about this, and if you haven't heard about it yet, you will, I promise you. The STAR method is the key to interviewing. It's the key to the conversation in the interview. It's important to start with that situation, you know, the challenge, the problem, or the concern. Then what was the task that you had to complete? What action did you do in order to complete that task? And then what result came out of it? You know, did you hit those goals? Did you hit that percentage? Was there a delay and you didn't meet the goals? That's all really important information that can help you stand out. And then last, make sure that you brainstorm and prepare. So you can go and prepare general situation questions, general tasks that you've completed over time in your past jobs, in school, at your internships, and you can put them all into kind of prepared questions so that when they come up, you're going to have those answers ready to go and know some of those things off the top of your head and be able to automatically just form that star situation rather than hesitating or coming across as unprepared. You're going to have that all ready to go. So before going to the interview as well, make sure that you're prepared in general. So make sure that you're ready to listen. Make sure that you are ready to ask questions and prepare those ahead of time. All right, and then you want to make sure that you are thanking them and thank them for taking the time to set this up. Thank them for interviewing you. And if you are interested in a position, make sure that you verbalize that at the end of the interview. And then after the interview, make sure that you are sending that thank you letter. Make sure that you can send an email. If they don't have an email, you are more than welcome to have a message left for them, or call a receptionist and ask for an email so that you can send an email to the person that you interviewed with, rather than the recruiter. Thank them for the time that they spent. Tell them how you enjoyed it. Feel free to throw in just one sentence that kind of, highlighted part of your conversation to remind them of what they talked to you about. That will really help you to stand out in the end. And keep in mind that interviewing for one position and getting denied is not the end of the world. Interviewing is great practice. Don't ever turn down an interview as you're going through your careers, as you're going to try out for internships and other smaller job opportunities. Interviewing isn't going to hurt you. It's only going to prepare you even better for the next one. So one of the things that we wanted to throw in here as well was just virtual interviewing. So I know with COVID, it's become a little bit more prevalent than it was before, when it was all in-person interviews, especially if you're applying for a job that is either going to be full-time remote, or you're moving to a new area, and then also with, of course, COVID precautions that are still taking place right now. Please make sure that you're treating it like a regular interview. Make sure that you understand that you need to dress appropriately for the interview. You should the same way. You should test tech at the time. So if you have a friend who has the same system that you're going to be interviewing with, do a quick chat with them and make sure that it's on your computer correctly or on your phone correctly and set up so that when you go to use it, it's ready to go and you don't have to start downloading software. Make sure that you're setting the scene. We do understand in interviews, if you can't have a plain background, just make sure it's appropriate. Make sure that you're in a quiet setting where it's going to minimize your distractions, where you're not going to have people walking in the background or someone maybe interrupting your interview at any time. And don't panic. Technology has issues. There are problems that are going to arise. You could have your computer crash in the middle of it. The internet could go down, and we understand that. And most of the people that are interviewing you are going to understand that as well. Things happen, so don't panic. Try your best to get it back up. Send the person an email off of another device and say, I don't know what happened. I am still in here. And send them that nice note just explaining what happened on your side and try your best to get back in. I know it can throw you off in your interview, so take a deep breath then and kind of try to dive back in. I know it can be a little intimidating, and they understand that as well. It's a different world for virtual interviewing. So with all of that being said, like I said before, success is not a straight line. You're gonna have ups, you're gonna have downs, you're gonna have interviews that don't go so well, and you're gonna have interviews that you thought went great and then you didn't get a job offer. So don't let it get you down, and best of luck in everything moving forward in all of your careers. So with everything, We are ready for any questions that you guys have. You can put them in the chat or feel free to take yourself off of mute and just ask a question.
I have a question for you.
Absolutely.
How do you guys deal with the same thing what you're saying, a job interview, and you guys have it, it's a great interview and everything, and you expect to get the job or a call back? How do you deal with failure and you don't get a call back and you really liked that position and you thought you were a great fit for that? What do you guys do?
I out of college, I had an elementary education degree, and I was interviewing for the position where I taught my student teaching, and I thought for sure I would get it, right? Like it was a shoe-in. Like I was there, they know me. I didn't get the job, right? So I was like, oh my goodness, like what am I gonna do now, right? So I drove out to Maryland and started working here, which is crazy. So at the time, like I was defeated, but I just said, you know what? There was a reason, right? So I'm just going to keep trying. And then I ended up in this job filing paperwork, right? And so obviously over the past 12 years, I've grown and I've learned a ton. And so looking back now, I feel like that happened for a reason. And it's not, I wasn't meant to teach in an elementary school. I was meant to do some other things. And so, I mean, now looking back, I'm okay. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard. But I think.
I wonder what happens with like COVID. I wonder if there's the same amount of job opportunities that were present before the whole COVID thing. So do you think after like graduation, say I graduate and I can't find a job for a year, do you think employers will look at that and say that I wasn't trying, or would I have to explain to them basically what's going on?
No, I can honestly say I've actually seen more jobs in recruiting for competition than I have in a while, just because companies were able to move things remote that they never thought they could. They started considering jobs that they never considered before. So the job market hasn't really changed so much in general with availability of jobs, so much as the job duties and the workforce itself had changed and adapted so that things are more virtual. There's more teleworking. That job that was originally filing the work in the office has now moved to using the internet to create larger files and putting everything virtually and then scanning it. And so things have just adapted more than gotten rid of the opportunities. Also, on top of that, like you said, not getting a job isn't the worst thing in the world. Chances are, as long as you are interviewing, you are going to get a job. It may not be your dream job right away, but you're going to get an offer. And it will come eventually. And it's not something to stress about if they don't come right away. I know I waited for months after graduating before I finally got my first official offer from a company. And it was extremely stressful, and it weighs on you, and it does, but you just have to keep pushing forward and applying and interviewing.
Yeah. One more thing, social media presence. I'm really not on social media. Really, I just have like an Instagram and Twitter. I really don't post anything. Do you think that could be detrimental overall, or do you think it really doesn't matter, honestly?
As long as you are not trying to move into a social media or marketing field, it should not affect much in your work.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I have a question as well. I know that there's a lot of student athletes here, and most internship opportunities are during like the semesters and stuff. Typically, would you say that that's a hindrance on getting jobs?
So that's a mixed bag there. So being a student athlete looks great on your resume as well, because you do have that extra commitment that you did, during your classes and figure that all out. My recommendation would be summer internships are great. Even though you may have limited amount of time during the summer because your season ends late or starts early, or you decide to take classes at the same time. But there are other options to that of getting a part-time job when you don't have, your sport, if it's not year round. Or like I said, summer internships are great. I do know also that, King's really prepares you for the job market in general, and the projects that they give you are also great experience to put on your resume. Taking those opportunities, the competitions on campus, which I'm sure some of them have moved remotely this year. I'm not entirely aware. But if not, I'm sure they will also have been completed in person before or will eventually again. So those are great opportunities as well to help you to build that resume if you don't have the time in your schedule for doing an internship or a job.
Yeah, and I would just say, try not to stress about it.
Yeah.
It will happen when you're ready. I mean, if you want to, focus on sports, and then after you graduate, you can get an internship then too.
Mhm.
Right after you graduate.
Yeah, there are paid internships. So, you can graduate and get an internship and get that year of experience or a couple months before you get a full-time offer. And then a lot of times that comes from your internship that will give you a full-time offer if you're doing a good job and they have an opportunity pop up.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Let me mention something and follow on of something that Katie mentioned earlier. She talked about explaining your jobs and detailing your jobs. Something I've always emphasized to people in the past is to make sure you also include any applicable volunteer jobs, not just jobs that you get paid for, but jobs that you volunteer for. People who are working in hospitals as a candy striper or something like that, or some of the other things that you may have done. You delivered papers or whatever the situation might be, but just but as Katie mentioned, to make sure they're applicable to what you're looking for. And key emphasis also is the fact that people shouldn't worry about just having one resume. You should have a resume that you can adapt to different jobs that you're applying for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I saw a hand pop up. You're more than welcome to just take yourself off of mute and ask a question. Go right ahead.
So my question is about the interview. Like, what kind of questions are you supposed to ask during the interview, or like at the end of the interview?
Okay. Katie, you want to?
Oh, as an interviewee, what kind of questions are you supposed to ask?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some people ask about what the work environment's like, what the culture is like. So some of that you can research ahead of time, but you can still talk a little bit about that. Sometimes people ask us why we like working there, which is an interesting question sometimes. What you could ask, I'm trying to think. Jordan, do you have any other ideas? There might be that come up in the interview too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Sometimes you'll have a question as the interview is conducting and going on. You might even have a question pop in your head at some point and say, okay, well, in the day-to-day duties, you described this. Could you go into more detail on what my responsibility would be regarding that? So you might even have a question that comes up from what they're talking to you and explaining to you about the interview. But honestly, if you're worried about questions and stressing about it, Google is your friend. There are plenty of HR websites out there that have a list of great questions to ask if you're trying to think of something. That can give you lots of options out there for questions like Katie said. What's the culture like? What's the environment like? Asking about promotional opportunities and like growth in the company is okay. If you're looking to go long term, because that's what it kind of keys into saying, I'm committed and I really want to grow with the company. Are there opportunities for growth in this position?
I would not ask about salary.
No.
At that point. So, and then sometimes you'll have kind of some questions, and then they'll answer them during the interview. And it's okay to ask maybe one question, say, well, I had, the other questions were answered during the interview. So.
Mhm.
So you said like no one should like ask about the salary, but how could they know? Should they like just wait? And
So typically you'll either know before the interview, or if they are interested in moving forward with you, they will give you a call or send you an email and talk to you again. And if they conduct a second interview or give an offer, that's when you would find out that information. So it's not a question that you want to ask in a first interview unless it is already provided to you.
okay, I also have another question. What if the person that's interviewing me, for example, he is like very interested and he's like wanna hiring me, but for example, for me, like I want to look at like better options, like this is not the best thing that I want to do, like what should
So
I do?
if the offer is given to you on the site, is that what you're asking?
No, I mean like kind of like during the interview.
If you don't want the job after the interview?
No, if I just like wanna see like maybe I have like better options, like this is not exactly what I want, for example.
So it's okay to end an interview, thank them and leave, and know that you do not want this position anymore, or you may not be interested in moving forward. That's not something that you need to necessarily reach out and tell them. If they reach out to you and you decide at that time that you're no longer interested, then please do get back to them and let them know. But you don't have to tell them like during the interview or decide at that time that you're no longer interested, or you want to consider other options.
But what if they are, for example, they are discussing about the job, like they are kind of hiring me in the same time, for example.
So if you get an offer on site, like they're saying, okay, when could you start or anything like that, you can ask if you could have some time to consider it and ask like when they would need an answer by. That would probably be your best option, is say, do I have time to consider the position, and when would you need an answer by, and see from there if they would give you, 24 or 48 hours to consider it, so that you can consider some other options as well and make a decision.
But doesn't that like make me, for example, doesn't look like I'm 100% like committed to the job offer?
No, I don't think so.
No, I mean, I will tell you, my job offer that I got from HeiTech, I asked for time to consider the position.
And she took forever.
No, I didn't. No, I asked for 2 days to consider the position because I had other offers pending.
Yeah. And we completely understood.
Mm-hmm.
So, most
it is.
will.
Yeah, it is a risk that you're taking when you ask for that time, but it's also a personal preference. So if you even have a sliver of doubt, my recommendation personally would be to take that risk and say, I would like the time to consider this. And most employers will completely understand that, you can't make a decision on the spot. Some people need to talk to significant others as well. If you're making a big decision about something like that, that is something that needs to be discussed with the family, or for moving or anything like that. That's also, going to take some time to look at before you make a decision.
Okay.
Beth, are there any questions in the chat room?
There are not, but we did have some submit questions in advance, and one was about virtual positions, and how do they stack up against in-office positions as far as pay and pay pretty much, and benefits, I would guess.
Sure. So virtual positions don't typically function that differently than the in-office positions. If it's a full-time position, you're going to get the same sort of benefits. The only benefit you wouldn't get would be on-site office. Most companies will provide the computer and office supplies to you. It's really going to vary depending on the company that you're working for, on what the virtual position will provide, whether it's a phone, whether it's the computer for work. If there's benefits such as virtual meetings for social hours and stuff with the company, some do that as like some extracurriculars as well.
Thank you. There's another one here about how soon after an interview can you expect to hear back? Well, that varies, but the real question, I guess, is when is it okay to call and follow up?
I mean, I think also in an interview, you can kind of ask what the timeline is. You know, when do you plan to fill the position? So you can kind of get an idea if you'll be hearing back in the next week or not. I mean, I'm thinking typically within a week, we normally have some sort of information.
Yeah, typically we say within like 5 business days, we'll get back to you. And if not, then like that would be the time where you could follow up.
I have a question. Yeah, so I have been working for three years. Like I have 3 years experience as a worker, like in a marketing field. So the question is, I haven't been improving in that work because when I used to work there, I didn't really have a job. Like I didn't have a high certificate. So I had to work there in the same position for 3 years until I go to the college, and then almost I'm now graduating. So basically when I go to the interview and we talk about that job specifically, and they will ask me more questions about it and why you don't improve. I have my own, but what do you think if it's like 3 years in the same position, not improving? Would it be a big problem?
So not every job is going to come with promotional or improvement opportunity. So it's not unheard of to be working the exact same position without any changes for more than 3 years.
Let's
So
say
it shouldn't
like,
be a question that arises really.
okay.
And I'm sure that over the course of those 3 years, you did learn and improve.
Of course, yes.
Right?
Yeah, so focusing on what you learned and improved, even though your job title or position didn't change at all, is where you're going to get the most out of your interview.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you so much to Jordan and Katie. And I just have a quick question for you. Some of our employers have been using pre-recorded questions where they'll send the students, you know, maybe 3 questions, and then they'll have so many days to record their answers and send that video back to the employer. I was just wondering if HeiTech is using any of those pre-recorded videos, or if you see yourself moving into that realm. Or if you have maybe any special tips for the students who might be in that situation where they get a pre-recorded questions and they have to turn in their video.
I have never heard of that.
I have actually.
Have you? I was like, I haven't. Apparently I'm out of the loop.
Yeah. So HeiTech will not be moving into that. We greatly enjoy the in-person aspect, even of the virtual, of being able to talk to the person and ask them more questions. Mm-hmm. As far as advice for the students, I would say that the good part about the recordings is that you can practice. So you're going to have more time to prepare and have a good answer, but that also means there's going to be a little bit more pressure on those answers. So I know that can add some stress. So it kind of balances out there of make sure that you prepare and have a good answer ready to go for any of the questions that could possibly pop up.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you also for mentioning research, the employer, and the STAR method. I appreciate that, reinforcing everything.
Of course.
So thank you all very much.
We had one other question about asking about graduate school, either accommodating it, somebody would like to also attend graduate school, how do you approach that, that piece in an interview or as part of the negotiation?
So I'm assuming this would be someone who would be looking to work full time and attend graduate school. Would that be probably a good guess? I don't know. So advice for that would be, your first interview, or the only interview at a company, you don't necessarily need to bring that up. If the conversation comes up, it's not a bad thing because it's showing that you want to pursue and move forward, which is great. If you're looking to work full time for a company, chances are you're going to be having to do that flex and taking night classes. And most companies very much encourage, you furthering your education. And a lot of them will support your education as well if you're interested in pursuing a degree in whatever career you are currently in. So I don't know how exactly to answer that unless someone has a more specific question, but I guess that's kind of a general census of it. It's not a bad thing, it's a good thing, and pursuing your education can never be bad.
George, to follow up on that, would it be appropriate to ask during interview as the interviewee if the company has any kind of education assistance to provide their employees, whether it's at nighttime or weekends or certificates or any of that nature?
Yeah, I think that's an absolutely fine question to ask. I would word it more along the lines of, I am interested in furthering my education and finding ways that I can, make it sound like it's an asset to the company. Make sure that you're working on your wording of asking the question and putting that together so that it sounds like, you're doing this to help the company to further your career, but also it's going to be an asset to the company. And do they provide the ability to get certifications and help you to pay for your education? And absolutely, that's a totally fine question to ask in an interview.
Chris, do you have a question? I'm sorry. Didn't mean to call you out, but I thought someone was raising their hand.
Oh, no, I don't have a question.
Well, that was it for the pre-submitted questions, or maybe, I don't know if anybody else.
I actually have a question. And just to let you know, actually, my computer is about to die, so I'm gonna ask quickly. So I want to know what kind of thing as a student you think it's good to include in my resume, or to have as a college student, because for me is I just spend my time with schoolwork, but I don't do things outside of school. So what are things that you think I should spend more to make me to make my resume better?
I'm sorry, she was cutting out a little bit, so I'm not sure I heard the entire thing, but you say you're not interested in anything outside of school. Is that what it was?
What? I'm sorry. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, that was my question.
Okay, so if you're not interested in anything outside of school, then my recommendation would be to do the school activities. So almost every single department at King's has competitions or extracurriculars that are included in those departments that they offer.
Like what?
Like for instance, the accounting department has a competition that you can put on your resume and compete in. I know that the HR department has a wonderful thing, a part of their curriculum previously that Mr. Marchese had, where your senior year you do a large project. So that's a great thing to put on your resume. So every single department has some sort of large project, even on your senior year, that you do that has a little bit more in-depth work on whether it's career in marketing, whether it's nursing, whether it is education where you're kind of doing a little bit more hands-on that is more related to the career that you're moving into. So highlighting that on your resume would be recommended.
I feel like I've seen like research things too.
Mhm. Yeah, doing extra research on the side is great as well. Yeah.
What kind of research? What are you talking about? Like research what?
Like within your degree area.
Okay.
It may not be relevant to you, but
Okay.
I'm just I'm just trying to think of things that I've seen on there before.
Yeah, like I know psychology usually has various research projects that they'll put on, as well as other sciences.
So so how can I reach to these like what do you call, like to each department, like for my department and see?
Yeah, I would recommend getting in contact with career planning and also talking to your department head.
Okay.
You can talk to them about opportunities or your advisor as well.
And I'll hop in there. If you're in, I'm not sure who this is because your name didn't come up on the, yeah, but if you're in Mr. Leffler's class, you're probably doing the target case competition.
Mm-hmm.
And all of our departments have a club associated with them as well. So if you're not sure who to contact to get into the club, you can contact Sean Cryan over on Campus Activities and you can do that. But and like Jordan said, even a lot of the departments will have student associations associated with that. So for instance, if you're an accounting major, you'll have the PICPA or the AICPA. If you're in human resources, like Jordan was, you can become a student member of SHRM. So things like that, we would recommend getting involved with. And, you know, it's fun to meet other people on campus as well. So if you're only interested in doing things on campus, then join some campus clubs. And Sean Cryan would be a great contact for that.
Are there any other questions for our experts? This is the time. I know that we lost our host because we have back-to-back sessions this afternoon. We have, as we know, we have one starting at 5 o'clock. So if there are no other questions, Jordan and Katie, do you have any parting remarks for our group, or should we wrap up?
Hi. Our contact information.
Teresa, do you know?
I'm sorry, Patrice, what was that?
I was just asking if they had our contact information. If they want to reach out to us, if they have questions, they're more than welcome to.
I'm sure that we have it, but if you want to type it into the chat, they can get it from there.
Okay.
That would be great.
Yeah. Thank you. Well,
I just want to say thank you all. Like I said, if you have questions or anything else, feel free to reach out to us. I'll put my email address in there and Jordan's in just a minute. But again, don't give up, don't stress, keep trying. Again, like Jordan said, you know, every interview you learn a little bit more and you grow. So good luck on your career searches and good luck with your college experience as well. Enjoy it.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you all so much. Great advice. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come and do this presentation for our students. We really appreciate it very much. So thank you.
yes, Jordan and Katie, thank you so very much. And thanks to the KWAC group as well. And as we say at each session, you know, KWAC is there to help everybody. You know, naturally, if you're in the DC area, they'll welcome you with open arms. But you know what, if there's somebody on the call or somebody that you know has experience, they'll be more than happy to help everybody. So thanks to KWAC. Teresa, thank you. Beth and Rose, who already jumped, and John Wetterow, who already left for the next session. And again, Jordan and Katie, thank you so very much. Really means a lot to us to share your expertise.
Absolutely, we're happy to do this. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day, guys.
Thank you.
Have
Have
a
a
good one.